So today we have a special guest. We have David Lim from Gemvision Canada here. He's a fantastic designer and a good friend of Gemvision, so let's all welcome him. I'm going to go ahead and give him the controls now, so just hang tight. If you guys have questions, please feel free to ask them of David.
See my screen?
We sure can.
Okay. So as everyone knows, MatrixGold is basically a new frontier for jewelry design, implementing parametric design. So one of the benefits of it is basically it allows people to work a lot faster. Let's say you designed a model and you don't really have to want to redesign a model again and again and again. If you design a ring or a model parametrically, it'll allow you to reuse the same design. So you wouldn't have to start fresh. So just to showcase some stuff here. So example, if you, let's say, either you want to do your own line or you do, let's say, halo rings, you could create a parametric halo ring like I've done here, and have that load up, and then you can basically, if it's done parametrically, you can just change a finger size and the whole model would change with it. And then you can adjust the gems and all the gem cutters would be created to those gems. So just to show you what I've done here. So for example, this Cathedral ring rail, I can go here, put edit, change the finger size. So let's say right now it's a size 7, I can change it to a size 6. I've laid out all the gems, and as you can see, all the gems and the cutters will rearrange itself to that new finger size. I recreated the halo separate so that way I can do this independently of each other. But there are tools here where we can actually have it so that when I change the finger size, the gem will also, the center gem will also readjust, and the cutters in halo will readjust to that. Just to show a few more, and then I'll start showing how I did some of this stuff. So this is a parametric wedding band. So I've already created all the cutters, created the band here. So if I go edit, I can change the finger size. Everything will adjust. Let's say, so this is designed based off position of the gems. So let's say I don't like this. I can go here, edit, and I can drag this profile and it'll automatically add and subtract gems and mirror them at the same time. So as you can see, if you do one design and it's fully parametric, you really can just start from one model and then just adjust it.
Yeah, that model really showcases parametric history quite well.
So if I edit the outside, let's say I didn't want this. So I'm going to change this to a Euro shank. And then it'll just readjust itself. So it's a matter of getting familiar with the parametric tools and dynamic commands. And once you have a familiar understanding of how they work and how they're combined, you can start doing some advanced models. And I guess I'll just show one more here. So this is an eternity band. So the setting here is parametric connected to these gems here. and also these gems are connected to this ring rail. So again, let's just do this quick. So if I change the finger size here, all the gems should collapse down. And let's say if I change this, increase the gem size, they all adjust. And they'll reapply the bezels. And then to fix this part right here, just edit this. I could probably change this to, let's say, it's 8, let's say. Oh, a little bit more. And then I have this offset curve, so it gives me a rough idea of the distance. And that will parametrically adjust to the gem as well. So they're just showcasing some of the stuff you can do with parametric, and the fact that you can just have a library of set models like I've done here, and then use that to start. And that'll save you a couple of minutes, maybe sometimes some hours.
It's kind of cool to see different types of modeling. I notice you use a lot of oriented gem and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that may be a cool tool to kind of go over this this webinar too when you have a second towards the end.
Okay, sure. So just to showcase some of the tools. So let's go new. So for example, like this one here, the first one I showed you with the band, where the gems will realign itself. So if I go and do finger rail, so what I'm gonna do here, so normally, so let's say if I was doing a normal band, what I would do is I would just create a finger rail, outside ring rail, add a profile, attach that profile to the outside, mirror this, sweep, close that, add my gems on curve, and then if I want to add, let's see, prongs or pave, so I'm not going to do any cutting, but just to show you, if I load in a few cutters here, and the nice thing is the fact that, let's say if I've created a cutter and I need to adjust it, I can go in and still adjust everything. That's the nice thing about having dynamic commands. So let's say I've created these here, and because everything is connected in this dynamic command stack here, we can just adjust one of these here and the whole thing should readjust. So example, like the ring rail. So I created the band with this ring rail and outside ring rail. So if I wanted to adjust this band, I can just use the ring rail. And then if the gems on curve, this was created with the outside ring rail. So this would follow whatever I do to these two here. And then same with the cutters. So the cutters are connected to the gems on curve. So since everything is all interconnected, if I need to adjust anything, then I would just have to adjust the one part that I need. So if I wanted to, let's say, change the outside ring rail, You can see how everything follows it. Okay, but what I did with the other model that I showed you, I created it so that the gems are, so if you look here, for gems to just start position, end position, and it's a percentage of a curve. If you understand some of the nuances to the parametric or commands, you can start taking advantage of those. So because this is a percentage of the curve, what I did, or what you can do, is set it up so that way, if you create a curve that readjusts to these profiles, then whatever you do to those profiles will affect the curve and in essence readjust the gems. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it sure does. That's just kind of how you string together parametric history inside of parametric softwares. One thing to keep in mind is you kind of have to, while modeling, think about how you want the commands to interact with each other, which is kind of what David's showcasing right now.
Yes. So like when I first started with MatrixGold, it was a bit, I would say a little bit difficult because you would have to understand how each tool works with the other tool. And when you're trying to work in parametric, you kind of have to plan out ahead of time what you want the ring to do. So, because if you don't really have an idea of how you want the ring to parametric connect, you can kind of get mixed up with the tools, and then some things may not link properly. So let me just bring up. So this, I think, is pretty straightforward in how this works, and a lot of basic designs run off the same principle as this. So, for example, this cathedral ring rail, it's basically the same thing as what I did earlier. It's just that instead of using a ring rail, we're using a cathedral ring rail here, and we're sweeping with that to create this sweep here, and then based off this sweep, you're going to connect the gems to it and then everything else after. So if you can see this stack here, everything is connected. So we have a cathedral ring rail, my center gem. So like this is separate, but if I go and I do profile placer, it's connected to the sweep 2, and then that sweep 2 is going to be connected to gems on curve, which is connected to the cathedral ring rail. And then from that, the cutters are all connected to the gem on curve. So as long as everything's connected, then you have a pretty good parametric model. And then this is using the halo. The nice thing I like about the halo, because it does all the gem layout for you, and it keeps it even. So I use this quite a bit to set up halos.
That's a good point to make. I don't know if many of you guys have ever tried to make a square halo and get those gems to fit in the corner perfectly, but that is such a headache sometimes.
And because this is all parametric, and I can go to this gem here and go from round to, let's go oval. You can see how it just readjusts everything. So really, if I just have this one design and I can make a whole bunch of halo rings in one shot, right? And let's say I want to edit this and I want to make the gem width larger. I can increase, and you can see how everything just readjusts with it. And because I've created the halo separate from the shank, I can actually just raise this or drop this depending on how I see fit. And then go back to the cathedral here, edit, bring this up, and then everything will reattach. And I also like this a lot because normally you'd have to draw out all these curves, and the fact that if I go here to front view, this is really handy how it just smooths the curve, and I can push and pull this, drop it and raise it up. And again, everything's connected. So if I want to change the gems, I can adjust that. So let's shrink this a little bit. Or even the cutters. Let's say I did this and I actually didn't want these to be micropone cut. I don't have to use these cutters. So I can do, let's say, delete these. Oh, or not delete these. All right, yeah, delete these. So this is just undoing the mirror I put here. But if I got rid of certain cutters, oops, wrong cutter. I can turn this into a channel bend. Just widen this, and this can be a channel bend. And then just remirror this. So even if like this was originally supposed to be for, let's say, pave, it doesn't have to be, right? It's just because of the fact that everything's parametric, I can go in and still adjust things, right? And you can delete what you don't want, right? But a good example of what I'm talking about is just simply brain fart. But what you can do is, let's say if I drew a curve and then extruded this, and this extrude planar, that's using Rhino history. So if I pull this, you can see that the extrusion changes. But example Rhino, we have extract ISO curve, but that ISO curve will not readjust. Oh, sorry, this one does. But it would normally, well, sometimes it would break, but by having the matrix one, I know it's not going to break just because it's tied to that.
Yeah, so just to kind of elaborate a bit more, you could, even though you started with Rhino commands, right? You had the rectangle and then the Rhino extrusion, you could extract an ISO curve parametrically, flow gems, and then adjusting the Rhino-based rectangle, right? It would adjust the stones as well. So
I think this is a great way. So using the dynamic Boolean difference, I believe this will work. So if I go in and I adjust this, it'll redo the Boolean difference. So if I hide this, so there. So normally with the Boolean difference with using Rhino, it's not going to be parametric. But because I have Rhino history with this curve with the extrusion, I can adjust this and you can see it's still cutting because I've combined it with a dynamic Boolean.
yeah, that's a great example too. One key thing about parametric modeling that a lot of customers tend, to misunderstand a bit. Parametric modeling will get you majority of the way and all the way in most cases, but sometimes it won't take you all the way. So that's why we keep Rhino visible, right? Most other softwares kind of hide Rhino, but we don't. We keep it in the background for the customers just in case they ever need it. So
yeah, and I think it's using a combination of picking your battles, kind of. So example for that, I would say one great tool that I love right now with Parametric. This makes life just, or actually, you know what? Let's do a quick custom head. And then I'll use pipe, or sorry, on pipe, Parametric. And I like the fact that with the pipe as well, like if you use a Rhino pipe, you can't go in and adjust the pipe. You'd have to delete it and recreate it. Here, I can actually just go in and adjust it. So it's great for doing like custom prongs. But let's say I grab this and I rotate. So if I use the mirror command here, so this is really handy. And the fact that I can go and adjust this whenever I want, I like that. But the one thing about having the Rhino one, if I wanted to do a mirror somewhere out in the space, then it's good to still have the basic Rhino tools, just in case I needed something different, right? So I can create my own mirror plane like that. So it's good to have both and kind of picking which one you would use for what purpose. So I think I was going to show how to do this ring here. Okay. So let's show this one. So this uses a lot of parametric commands, and if you get them to all flow well, it can be pretty powerful. So let's go with the ring rail. And normally what I think you'd normally do, you could use gem on ring rail, load this up here, and then that will give you, the nice thing about gem on ring rail, it keeps the distance between the ring rail and the gem consistent. So if I go and I do edit here, gem on ring will allow me to, this will readjust itself. The only thing is, if I adjust this, I have to readjust this, right? But this is a great way to start if you just want to do a quick eternity band with gems. So I can polar array that, slide this over. Then I can start doing my eternity band. So let's say I want to create a custom head. So I'll put a bezel here. Then I'll do a scallop cutter. Let's say it's 4-prong. Oops. Okay, so let's have cut this. So, and then what I can do is I can orient object to gem to these gems here. Oops. So, and then I'll just use a cut to ring rail to cut these. And then this should be fairly parametric. So as long as I'm not changing the gem size because of the way this is set up, I've created a simple eternity that I can adjust parametrically. Adjust this. Oops. So this is hidden here, so I just go to edit, and I can bring this up. You can see that they're all adjusting to it.
Yeah, that's a pretty good example of oriented gem. That's also a command I need to incorporate in my modeling. For whatever reason, I don't use it as, excuse me, as much as I should.
Yeah, I think it's quite amazing because if you create like a library of heads, so what I was trying to do here, so like example like this guy here, So if I delete these, let's go on instead. So go back to before I did the orient to gem. Oh, that's fine. So I'll just delete this for now. And then I'll import this. So let's say you create a library of heads, you can actually just orient to gem those heads too. So I can go gems, orient to gem. So you can do that. And then if I just adjust this, well, this was done parametrically. So if I go and find the first object I used to create this, and then everything should just adjust to it. And then these are pipes, so I can go into pipe and then adjust the thicknesses if I choose to. So orient to gem is actually quite powerful. And if you do, let's say, solitaire or something like that, you can use that to the same way.
Any questions for David? You guys are quiet today.
I mean, let me know if I'm going too fast, because I feel like I sometimes can't go too fast.
All right, I think you're doing great now.
No questions?
None yet. For those that don't know, you should have a panel on the right side of your screen where you can ask questions. If you hit the questions panel and just type one out to us, we can field them when we get them. So Sterling said, I'm beginning to understand the interrelationship of parametric stack building. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's kind of the whole fundamental thing about parametric modeling. Parametric modeling is nothing new, right? It's been around in civil softwares for years now, in AutoCAD and stuff like that, SolidWorks, but it's never really been implemented in jewelry. So that's kind of what Gemvision has tried to do here, and with that comes a new way of modeling, like David kind of spoke about. You kind of have to think about how you want the model to perform in the end, and that will kind of influence how you build your stack. So
Yeah. So maybe I'll just showcase one other thing. So I haven't created anything, so I'm going to just try to go from scratch. But let's say you want to do sort of, okay, I don't know if this will work, but already trying to process it. So that's why, like, sometimes when you've got an idea of something to create, you're gonna have to think about how you want to do the steps, because everything's connected. If you don't do the steps correctly, you might mess it up. So sometimes it's just a lot of trial and error. And I think that's basically how I got to understand a lot of the tools. It's just basically trial and error, seeing what connected, what didn't, and then where I broke the history is when I'm like, okay, maybe I can't connect them this way, right? So example, like if I want to do a matching band, and I know this may or may not work. So I create a ring rail, right? And then I'll create a curved band. Let's say I have an imaginary engagement ring, which I'm matching to, right? And here I would personally use the regular mirror, and then I'll do trim. And this is just the way I model. So from there, I'll use join. Oh, yeah, so I joined it. And that's basically a Rhino history warning. So people who don't know, down here, record history is for using the Rhino history. If you don't have this on, you don't have the Rhino history. Okay. And also, I think what helped me get used to history for people who are new, if you type history in the command line, you can have this thing here called broken history warning. And this is really useful when you're starting out, because it'll just tell you broke history, and then you're like, oh, okay, so then you know what has history and what doesn't. I think this is very helpful for new users, and this is how I started learning just Rhino history. So let's say control points. So just that's how I smooth it out. And then the tool I will use is curve from two views. And then I'll get this, okay? So I don't necessarily need this whole thing. So I'll use something here called trim. And I'm going to trim off half of it. Now it's trimming off the wrong side. So I'll just swap these values here. 0.25. Now I've got the top. So sometimes when you're using the dynamic commands, because things are interconnected, it'll hide things that it thinks it's not necessary. So since curve from two views and trim, so I'm not sure which one's causing it, but it basically hid the ring rail. So sometimes you're gonna have to go and just show it, okay? And then with that, I can add a profile here. So if I don't have it here, and this is another thing I'll just mention briefly. There's just some cases where you may or may not have tools. The context menu is very handy. I find that I use this a lot, and basically it's a shortcut menu that changes when you click on different objects. You can see like the tools are changing, and what I'll do is I'll create a custom list, which I have here, and I just commonly use tools that I have, and I'll just go here if I can't find something, and it saves me a little bit of time from going up into the ribbon and looking for that as well. And just for those, I guess, who want to know how to do this, there's this little gear up here for customize menu. And you could just say, so let's say here, I'll add a new one. And then I'd say it's a gems tool. And then you can give it a name for whatever you want. So let's say this is going to be gems on curve. This is something I use a lot. And then if you know the command, you can, so I know this command, so it's gv gem on curve. You can enter and save it, and then it should show down here, gems on curve. Okay. And for those who don't really, again, if you're new to this and you don't really know all the commands, what you can do is if I click on, let's say here, and I do the gems on curve command, let's just do this. Down here, if I hit, oops, so let's say I use the command, it'll say here what the command is. So if you copy this text here and put it, see, go back to context menu and just copy that into here, you can create your own customized list. And this could also speed up your workflow for people who don't know that. So just to show you this. So a mirror profile, this didn't mirror properly. So go here, rotate mirror. And I'm just doing something very simple. So I'll do sweep, sweep one. And then this, turn off these thumbs. And then I'll just resweep with the ring rail down at the bottom part of the shank. Turn that off. Then there's kind of my matching band, and this is parametric. So if I go and I just turn on my control points, I can just manipulate these control points. And you always want to select both sides so that it stays even. Or if you don't, you can just grab the one side and pull this in. And then you can create something unique. Oops. Clicking the wrong one. Okay.
That's a great showcase. So this is how a lot of customers do their freeform modeling. I think Zoltan David's in here, and he does a lot of freeform modeling. So this would be pretty good in your showcase, Zoltan.
Okay, yeah. And then just you can do a lot of crazy stuff, I think, if you just combine it with a whole bunch of other stuff. So, you know, if I go mirror, I can mirror this, to rotate mirror, or just do a regular mirror. So I really like the mirror tool, the fact that I can do like multi, or I can do like, because normally the Rhino mirror, I could never do a flipped mirror, like I'd have to rotate all the time. But the fact that this has, I can mirror on X and Y and it knows to do it diagonally. I find that that's pretty amazing. Because what I normally would have to do, if I use the regular Rhino mirror tool, I can just mirror it like that. But in order for me to do what mirror does for the dynamic one, I'd have to rotate, copy. It's a little bit more work, and it's not 100% dynamic.
Yeah, rotate with copy doesn't convey Rhino history, so.
Yeah, because then when you start going like more, you start adding more stuff to it with the dynamic commands, that's when Rhino has a hard time keeping up, and the dynamic commands is pretty powerful. So if I was going to do extract ISO curve on top of this, and then do gem on curve and have everything connected, then I basically created the one matching band I need for simple curve bands. So let's go extract ISO curve on this guy. Gems on curve. And target object to orient the gems. And then same thing what I did with all my other ones. I'll create all the cutters ahead of time and then save that as my base model. And to save it as your base model, you just simply say full save. And it's going to save your dynamic commands as well. So I think some people get confused with full save and job bag save. Job bag save, whatever you select and you hit job bag, it'll just save this, what is selected, but not necessarily saving the hidden commands here. But if you click the full save, it'll save everything and the hidden. Did we have any other questions?
We don't have any currently, but there was a question earlier about SmartFlow. You use SmartFlow quite often?
Yeah, it's pretty, yeah, so if you use it with parametric tools, I find it's pretty cool. So example like this, there's this tool here, which I really love as well, extrude curve. And if I go extrude both sides, and then I can do this. And I love this extrude because if I do a normal extrude, so solid, extrude planar, like so, I can't go and adjust this planar curve. The only way I can adjust it is if I do this, but then if you see here, I broke my history, right? So that doesn't work. But if I go here, I can go and edit, and then I can readjust this if I didn't like a certain diameter or distance. Okay, and then from that, I'll go to transform, auto base, center this guy up.
So his question was, can you SmartFlow from any surface, or does it have to be auto based? The answer is it can be from any surface.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to run the auto base command. So.
Yeah. The reason why I was doing the auto base, I just want to showcase the fact that this extrude here is connected to the auto base, and because this extrude is dynamic, so you can see here, I can readjust this, and I think this is great.
Yep. And now, Theodore, you see why AutoBase is there is because it conveys parametric history back to the original object.
So yeah, for filigree, I guess anything that you really want to go flow from a flat surface to a curved surface, then this is what you would use, right? But yeah, just showing that the fact that you have this extruded with the AutoBase and the fact you can smart flow that after is, again, very powerful. And some nice things if you're new to modeling and new to MatrixGold, sorry. It can really get you started really fast. So the fact that we have pre-built ring rails, and now we have, if you go to tools, you have the Cathedral ring rail, you have a bypass ring rail. It saves you a lot of time from having to draw out Cathedral ring rails. Because normally, if this didn't exist, I create a ring rail, then I would go to the curve menu, freeform curve, and I'd have to draw out using snaps, kind of Cathedral ring rail, right? And then this, I'd have to go in and manually adjust the control points, and it can be a little bit of a pain. It also doesn't have parametric, so if I go and change the finger size, this doesn't reconnect. But with these pre-built dynamic ring rails, this is just so much faster. And it's a lot easier for someone starting out because then you don't really have to, I notice some people, they have a hard time drawing curves. And that takes some practice, but the fact that this will do some nice transitioning, it can save someone some heartache. And the same with the bypass. If I go back to my perspective view, so I can make this longer, make it shorter. So if I was doing something like this, the outside ring rail, put a gem, I'm going to go head builder, let's go back here, edit, there we go. Let's say with this, and then profile placer, select outside curve, mirror, to and then for me to normally do this, if I didn't have this bypass ring, I'd have to draw out the curve and do a curve from two view like I did with the matching band. So the fact that we have some of these tools, it just saves time.
So we do have a question really quick. Arlene is asking, where do you find command list to customize the contact menu?
Oh, so like how to, okay, so to adjust this, go to here, and then you get this list here, and then this is where you can add or subtract commands, or you can adjust commands. And then to get the commands themselves, you just have to activate the command you're looking for. So let's just go new. So let's say let's just say it's a Boolean difference command. And then you can see here when you click on Boolean difference, it'll say here _GV Boolean difference. You can go select this, copy, go here. Oh, so it's not in here right now. So if I go here, and then let's say Boolean difference is in the solid command. So just to keep things color coded, I can go solid, copy. So paste that and then I can give it a name, so I can go Boolean difference, and I can even, let's say, Boolean difference regular, enter, save, and let's say there's this Boolean difference too. And it doesn't show here what it was. I can right click, and it even says, if you right click on the command line, it'll say a list of the commands you used. So here's a Boolean difference, the Rhino command. This is just what I do. I like to have both. I think I've shown quite a bit already. I don't even know what else I can really show.
Do you have any like tips or tricks for beginners, or something that you always look out for?
In terms of like when I'm teaching people, I find people are really good with the tools. I think the only time things get a bit crazy is just not really used to simple things like the right mouse button is enter. So if I draw a sphere here and I want to draw another sphere, I can click sphere and keep drawing spheres by clicking the sphere. But the other way of doing it is right clicking on the mouse and it'll reactivate the previous command. And I find if people don't are not used to using the right mouse button, they may reuse commands, and you have a like in your dynamic commands, you might have a list of like duplicates, and it really confuses people. So I think just some little tips in terms of if you're learning, just remember right click is to reactivate a command, and also is to hit. It's also enter. Keep in mind with things like colors, like this. So in Matrix, a lot of tools are created with, especially dynamic commands, they have their own designated colors. Let me see if I can show what I'm talking about. So let's say I have a ring rail and I go and do the extrude curve. This extrude curve is yellow, right? And I know sometimes some people will hide the yellow, and when they go and they do extrude curve, and they see it here and they're like, great, I made it, enter, it's gone. And it's actually because it's hidden. So some things to keep in mind if you are modeling. Matrix uses its own colors for certain objects, and you want to make sure those aren't hidden, because sometimes you're doing something right, but you get I guess some people get frustrated because they're doing something, they know they're doing it right, but they can't see or find it. And sometimes it's just simply because something was hidden, or you just misclick something. Another common one is if you're working on something. So let's say I did this. Okay, so let's say I did a Boolean command and it didn't work, and you right click by mistake, and then you start doing stuff and nothing's working. It could be because you have a command activated down here, and to know whether a command is activated, just read the command line. If it says like something here like select first surface, it means something's activated. If there's nothing activated, so example, if I hit escape, it should just say command. And that's another thing that I think beginners get frustrated with, is when it's just, again, it's when they're trying to do something and it doesn't work, and it's not because they're doing something wrong. It's just they may have misclicked something, or they don't know something is like active. So I think get in a habit, if you're doing stuff and things aren't working, just hit escape a couple times to clear out whatever command's there. I think that would be helpful.
Any more questions for David? We'll give him a couple minutes. We do definitely appreciate you for joining, David. For those that don't know, David's in the Great North up there in Canada. I'm pretty sure I said that in the beginning, but yeah, he's one of the Gemvision partners up there, and I actually had the pleasure of meeting him at JCK, and he's a fine gentleman and a great designer. So if you have questions, shoot him over. Great session. Thank you. Getting a lot of comments. Everyone's great. Thanks, David. David, are you on Instagram?
Not really, but we do have GV Canada has an Instagram, and that's where we post things.
That was from Arlene. I will post it in the comments for you, Arlene. I believe it's GV Canada _official, right?
Official? Yep.
Graham's gonna love this. All right, well that's about our hour. You have anything else you wanna cover, David? You ran through it all?
Yeah, I think that's about it. Unless somebody had a question or if you wanted something.
Oh no, this is about you. The only thing I was working on recently was making a French set. I'm sorry, Euro shank on a cathedral. But I'm
yeah.
gonna save that for next webinar. So
Okay, cool.
this is great. Thank you. You're welcome, Arlene. Well, guys, that will about do it for us. If there's no, oh, Arlene said render.
Render?
Yeah. Do you want to do a quick render?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so what I do for rendering. So first things first, when I render, I like to clear out the dynamic commands. So once I'm done my model, I will clear out the dynamic command stack here. And to do that, no, it's not here. Okay, so let me just, Bo, I think there's normally like an eye here, right? That allows me to show all. It's not here right now. But basically, oh, there it is. Okay, so click this guy here, and I'll just unhide all my dynamic commands here. And then I'll go and delete anything I don't need in my render. And I get this transform has broken history, which is fine because I don't want the history anymore. I'm done my model. Anything I don't need. And then the last thing I want to do is there's a tool here called GV. It's break history, and it just kills all the dynamic commands. So that way, when I go and I need to rotate or change or add another object like this, it's just faster because it's not trying to redo the whole dynamic command list, right? So this is, I'm assuming when you're rendering, you're done your model, right? And I'll just group these here. So let's just do this. Okay. So because everything is colored in layers, it is. Okay. So I can go to my render studio. So I can right click here to select the colors. So green is all my metal here. And let's say I want to use, let's make this a bit more interesting. So I want to hide my gems, select this and change the color here. So I have, oh, group. Okay, so that's good. So the reason I did that, so select this. Let's say I want this to be yellow gold, add material, this one. So this is grouped, group that. And then let's say this is rose, apply, so apply the materials. Let's say these are gemstones. And you want to make sure when you're doing gemstone rendering, you want to have all the cutters, like you want to have all the seats cut out for it. So then let's go to gems. Let's see, maybe I'll just go. Add material. Add material. Oh, let's go here. Let's confirm. Select duplicate objects just in case. Yeah, so I had all these duplicates. So this thing is called super select. It's quite handy because sometimes when you're rendering, you don't want to have overlapping objects, and the culprit's usually a duplicate. So if I go to super select duplicate objects, it'll select it, and just hit delete to get rid of those. And so I've applied the material. I can hit render here. Yeah, sorry, this is on my laptop, so it might be a little slow. And we can do that. Some things I'll do just personally. Nothing wrong with the render studio, but I kind of like going into the Rhino and then kind of doing my own materials. I think Mehmet on the last webinar had shown this.
Yep.
But yeah, I also do that just to do. I'm just used to this workflow. So.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, you can always create custom materials and upload them. You can choose, different bump maps and stuff like that you want to apply. So the cycles engine is exactly what it sounds like. It's an engine that pushes it, right? So we came out with in the render studio just basic layer render material, layer color, stuff like that for you to apply, but you can always elaborate more on it, kind of like David's doing now. Also, sorry, don't mean to keep interrupting, but
Yeah.
Cycles takes advantage of path tracing tech.
Yeah, so like right here, so I can do a viewport rendering. So I can go here, go to ray trace, and then you can see the it live in your viewport. And this is kind of how I set up my scenes. So let's say this pink here. I don't like that pink, although I think it's not bad. I can just go here and maybe, I don't know, make it lighter. That, click OK, and then you can see it change. So it's just kind of one of the reasons I use the Rhino, just because I can see it kind of change seamlessly. But the only thing is this requires a pretty good computer. Can really slow it down. Like my Fanta's going crazy right now.
Yeah. So the fundamental difference between cycles and V-Ray is kind of how the engine behind the scenes produces the image, right? Ray tracing actually shoots a pixel out into the metaphorical render room everywhere it touches and interacts with an object. It'll send information back to the camera. In V-Ray, you essentially just apply a picture to an object. And while it's easier, you don't have as much control. So ray tracing, you can get much more lifelike renders than you ever could in V-Ray. So
I don't know why this gem is being weird. There we go. And I think like just from, if you want to do some really good renders, a key thing or tip is lighting. Having good lighting in your scene helps a lot. So let's just say what I usually like to do. So I usually use whatever the environment lighting is, which is right here in the general styles. And by changing the general styles, it'll change the HDRI, which is basically the lighting and what's reflected off the metal and surfaces. What I'll also do, I'll go to render and lights, and I like to use either point, spot, or the rectangular light. So I'll draw a rectangle. This. I'll take this. .45-degree angle. And then that will give me a different look. So then that's spreading out, but then I'll have more of the reflections off to the one side, and it just gives your scene a bit more realism. So let's say, let me just quickly delete that. So if I, let's say, delete, and just look how, without the light and with the light. So if I delete, see how there's no light coming out from the side, so it looks a bit dull. By adding one light, you can kind of brighten up the scene, but give it more realism because you'll have directional light.
That's a good tip too. All right, is there any more questions for David? Any more questions for Gemvision? Thank you. You're welcome, Arlene. Well, guys, that will about do it for us. I certainly appreciate you all for joining, and David, we certainly appreciate you joining and taking your time to demo for us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Just for a kind of notification, these webinars are every Wednesday at 11 Central. So if this is your first time here, please go back on gemvision.com and click that register link. And yeah, we'll be back next Wednesday. I appreciate you guys and have a good one. Thanks again, David.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.